it in the past. We only bring it forward as a curiosity to help with and to learn knowledge from, but it belongs back there. All of these things belong with the other body. It does not belong with this body and this personality, and there's no reason to carry it over into this life. And once we have done that, then the subconscious agrees, yes, you're right, they don't have to bring it over in this life. They don't need it anymore. So it would be wonderful for her to be able to smell things, to be able to smell food cooking, to be able to smell flowers in the garden. So it agreed to allow it to come back. So sometimes the reason for things are not exactly what the doctors think they are. There was a whole lot of more. There's a whole lot of different things that we can't grasp with our normal reasoning minds anyway. Let me give a few cases of asthma that I've encountered. Many times, asthma comes from lifetimes where a person died of suffocation, of something with the lungs, maybe different, and maybe even sandstorms, places once where they couldn't breathe. If anything dealing with a death of that type would cause asthma in this present lifetime. You would probably be able to think of many of these because the death experience is so traumatic that sometimes it leaves a carryover, a residue that is brought forth into this life. And often it's not needed, but it does create physical problems. So I had this one friend. He was another doctor. I seem to associate with a lot of these doctors, but this was a doctor who now is a very good friend of mine. Because now, for many years now, anytime I have medical questions for my work, I can call him and ask him questions about it because I'm always doing a lot of research on my books. I can't go to the local doctor and ask him some of these questions because you want to know, why do I want to know? And it's a little hard to explain to the average person that I'm dealing in reincarnation and I need this medical information to go along with my work. Well, this man knows me because I worked with him, and so he's like my medical consultant, and I call him when I have any questions. Well, when I first met him, when he came to me, he said he had asthma, and he was using the inhalators, and he didn't want to do that because he knew that the inhalators could become habit-forming and they were really defeating the purpose. He said he had an idea that it came from past lives, and he wanted to find out what was causing it. So that would be a much safer way of handling it than to keep taking the medications. So we took him back into a past life, and he was a native running around in the jungle. Now these natives were being captured and taken underground to work in the asbestos mines. And when I did research later, I found out that the French in Africa had a lot of these asbestos mines underground. And they would capture the natives and use them as slave labor in the mines. And he was one of these natives that had been captured and taken down there. And it was a very horrible situation, cramped conditions, and they were working to where they were breathing this asbestos. Well, he began to notice that some of the people, the other men, began to develop symptoms. They would breathe this asbestos in, and it would irritate the lungs till finally they would begin bleeding from the nose and the mouth, and eventually they would die. When they would, the people who were running the mines would take them outside, back into the jungle, and leave their bodies out in the jungle, and then they would capture someone else to bring them underground to continue the work. So he saw this happening, but he was in a situation where there was no way out. So before long, he began to notice the symptoms appearing in his own body from the breathing of this material that was in the air. And in his culture, it was not wrong to commit suicide if you were in a situation that you couldn't get out of. So he took a stake, a wooden stake, and he drove it into his right shoulder, between the shoulder and the chest. He drove the stake into his body and killed himself. He got out of the situation in that way. Well, when we got to the subconscious, it said this had carried over to where any time he was in a situation of stress in his present lifetime, these symptoms would appear with the breathing symptoms, and it would bring this back. And that was what was causing the asthma. So then I had to work with him on this to relieve it because, as I said, it belongs to the other body, the body that died way back then. It belonged to that body, and it did not belong to the body he is in now. So as I work with the subconscious in this manner, then it agrees, all right, we can take it away. It's no longer necessary. So when he woke and we were talking about it, he said, I always wondered why occasionally I have pains in that part of my body between my shoulder and my chest, and that it was the exact spot he was rubbing was where he had driven the stake in. Well, many of these cases I don't have ways of checking up on. But because I see this man occasionally whenever I go out to where he lives, his area, and I do conferences, I do get to see him, and so we become friends. So one of the last times I saw him, we were all having dinner together, and it had been about 2-3 years since we'd had the sessions, and I asked him, well, by the way, how is your asthma? And he said, oh, that's right, I used to have asthma, didn't I? So it had gone away to where he didn't even notice it, he didn't even pay any attention to it anymore. So that, to me, is proof it goes away because it's no longer necessary. And we can just take it away, any of these things, when they're no longer necessary. I've had several people who have come to me that have this great sense of sadness. It's as though I hear this all the time. They say, I don't belong here. I'm not from here. I don't want to be here. I don't like the violence here. I'm just very sad and depressed. I hear this a lot. Now, there can be many reasons for this. Some of it, as I will go into in the weeks to come, could be the star children who have volunteered to come. But that's a different situation, and I will be covering that in the future talks. But these two or three here that I do want to bring up that came from something else. One was a woman I did in Singapore. And you know, in Singapore, they don't have access to as much metaphysical literature as we do. There are not a whole lot of books allowed in that country, and there's not too many metaphysical speakers. They just don't have the access to it. So you can't say she's making this up. But she said all her life she had this deep, deep sadness and sense of loss. And she said her parents said they didn't have any pictures of her smiling at all. She had always been very sad-looking all of her life. Well, she went back to a lifetime where she watched the destruction of her planet. She was from another planet, another time, and she had been on a spaceship, and they had come back, and they were orbiting the planet, and she went down to try to find her friends and her home. Everything had been totally destroyed, like there was some kind of war or something, but everything was in ruins. And she was totally shocked. It left a lasting impression on her because she lost everything. Then she went back to the orbiting spaceship, and everything was operated by the mind, and she could hardly even get back in because her mind was so distraught. But the sense of seeing everything gone, her family, her friends, her home, and knowing she could never go back there again, made her bring forth this deep sense of sadness in this lifetime, because this planet apparently was not her home, not the one she wanted to go back to. And I also had this happen, another person who was in an orbiting spaceship, and he watched as his home planet blew up. So here it was again, the destruction of something. You can never go home again. Many of them are looking for that. They say, I want to go home, but I don't know where home is. I just know it's not here. Then I had another woman who had this deep sense of sadness. We found out that she was supposed to have been a twin. She was supposed to have had another soul. They had made an agreement. We'll come back together. We will be together in this next life. You won't have to do it alone. A lot of times you do this. You come back with other people, and there is this great feeling of, well, we want to be together. We like to be together. And when it got ready to come, the other soul changed its mind and decided it didn't want to come this time. It was too late. The one that I was speaking to was already going on the return visit and was inside the body and being born. So it was like she felt deserted by the other soul, the one who was supposed to be with her and to accompany her into this life. It was a deep sense of sadness because she was supposed to be a twin. I think we're about running out of time here now. I had many others of these. I will try to continue with these in the next show, and that should take me through the time I'm going to be gone. By the time we go through this next show, I should be back from the Middle East, and I will have a lot of things to talk about then, and that will be a live show, and I'll be doing live shows from that time on. So the next show I'll go over with some more of my cases. When I do the live shows, then we'll have call-ins. Well, people will begin to ask questions. Maybe by that time you'll have a better idea of what I do and what I write about. But I want to give out my 800 numbers and the way you can contact us through our website for information about the books and about anything that I'm talking about and any future authors that I'm going to have on. Because I have my own publishing company and we have many, many authors. We will be interviewing many of these. But if you want to call, the number is 1-800-935-0045. 1-800-935-0045. Our website is, the name of the company is Ozark Mountain Publishing. So we have that abbreviated on our website. It is www.ozarkmt.com. The abbreviation for mountain. Ozark Mountain. ozarkmt.com. So long till next time.